Have you ever noticed how quick people are to judge? And how rare it is to actually hear someone pause, think deeply, and then respond? Most of the time, people don't think. They just react. They judge. They label. They assume. And Carl Jung once said something brutally honest about this. Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. And if you really sit with this quote for a second, it stings. Because it's not just about other people. It's about you. It's about me. It's about the human tendency to take the shortcut. Judging someone is easy. Thinking about why they are the way they are? That takes work. And most of us avoid that work without even realizing it. But here's the real question. Why is thinking so difficult? And why is judging so tempting? Let's be honest. Thinking isn't just about processing information. True thinking means you're confronting complexity, sitting with uncertainty, and challenging your own assumptions. That's uncomfortable. For example, if your coworker snaps at you, judging them is instant. They're rude. Thinking about it is slower. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe something's happening at home. Maybe I also contributed to the tension. And this slower process requires you to put your ego aside, to hold multiple perspectives at once, and to admit you might not fully know the truth. That's exhausting compared to judgment, which is fast, simple, and final. Think about this. When was the last time you rushed to judge someone, without pausing to ask yourself, what else could be going on here? Carl Jung often pointed out that our ego doesn't like uncertainty. The ego wants control. Judgment gives it that control. When you judge, you instantly place yourself above the situation. You create categories, good or bad, right or wrong, friend or enemy. The world feels simpler when it's neatly labeled. But deep thinking doesn't give you those quick answers. It forces you to sit in the gray area, to admit contradictions, to recognize shadow aspects of yourself in the people you dislike. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because if you think deeply, you'll eventually realize this. The things you judge in others often reflect the things you've denied in yourself. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every harsh judgment you make might just be a mirror. Let's make this real. When you scroll through social media and see someone bragging about their lifestyle, judgment is easy. They're fake. They're shallow. Thinking is harder. Why does this trigger me? Am I insecure about my own life? Do I secretly crave what they have? When someone cuts you off in traffic, judgment is fast. What an idiot. Thinking takes effort. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe I've done the same thing when I was late. Even with yourself. When you fail at something, judgment sounds like, I'm useless. But deeper thinking would ask, what's the lesson here? What fear is holding me back? What part of me is resisting growth? See the difference? Judgment is instant, shallow, and protective. Thinking is slower, uncomfortable, and transformative. Here's where dark psychology comes in. Judgment is not just a personal habit. It's a social weapon. People judge to elevate themselves. By tearing someone down, they get a cheap hit of superiority. And this is addictive, because it feels good to the ego. That's why gossip spreads so easily. That's why cancel culture exists. That's why entire groups of people get labeled, without anyone stopping to think about the complexity of their lives. Carl Jung would say this is the shadow at work. The parts of ourselves we don't want to face, so we project them onto others. Instead of thinking deeply about why someone bothers us, we label them and move on. But here's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you judging because it's true, or because it's easier than looking in the mirror? Jung wasn't exaggerating when he said most people avoid thinking, because real thinking costs something. It costs energy. It costs time. And it often forces you to confront painful truths about yourself. Imagine sitting alone without distractions. No phone. no TV, no background noise. For many people, that silence is unbearable, because in silence, the mind starts digging, and once it digs, you can't escape the truths that surface. That's why people drown themselves in distractions, overworking, overconsuming, overanalyzing others while avoiding themselves, because judgment is external, but thinking always turns inward. This is why true deep thinkers are rare. They don't run from discomfort, they lean into it. A deep thinker doesn't just ask, "What's wrong with the world?" They ask, "What's wrong with me?" They don't just criticize others, they analyze themselves. They don't hide from the shadow, they confront it. Carl Jung believed this kind of inner confrontation is the path to individuation, becoming your truest self by integrating the light and shadow within you. And that's not easy. It's lonely. It's painful. But it's also liberating. So the real question isn't, are you judging? It's, do you have the courage to think? And I'll be honest with you. I've fallen into this trap myself. I've judged people just to protect my ego. I've looked at someone and instantly labeled them, without pausing to consider their story. And every time I've done that, it felt good for a second, but empty afterward. But when I force myself to slow down and think, really think, something shifts. I see the humanity in the other person. I see parts of myself reflected back. And sometimes, I see truths I didn't want to admit. It's humbling. It's uncomfortable. But it's also freeing. And I'll be honest with you. I've fallen into this trap myself. I've judged people just to protect my ego. I've looked at someone and instantly labeled them, without pausing to consider their story. And every time I've done that, it felt good for a second, but empty afterward. But when I've forced myself to slow down and think, really think, something shifts. I see the humanity in the other person. I see parts of myself reflected back. And sometimes, I see truths I didn't want to admit. It's humbling. It's uncomfortable. But it's also freeing. So here's my recommendation for you. The next time you catch yourself judging, pause. Don't stop the judgment. Just notice it. Ask yourself, what's underneath this? What is this reaction really about? It might reveal your own insecurities. It might reveal your own shadow. And if you sit with it long enough, it might actually transform you. Because here's the truth. Judgment keeps you stuck. Thinking sets you free. Carl Jung wasn't just making an observation. He was giving us a challenge. To stop taking the shortcut. To stop hiding behind labels. And to start doing the harder work of deep thought. It won't make you popular. It won't make life easier. But it will make you more conscious. And that's what this journey is really about. So the next time you're tempted to judge, remember this. It takes no effort to label, but it takes real courage to think. And if you want to grow, if you want to truly know yourself, courage is the only path forward.